Okay, great. Wish I could write a message. Hi everyone. We will open the room up in just a bit. Um, okay. And one thing I wanted to do also was just have this open already. Facilities. Boom, boom. Is there anything else that I wanted to have open already? No. Okay, I'm gonna sort of play it by ear. Um, okay, it's recording. Yes, it is recording. I'm gonna play a little music. Spotify. And playlist. Um, you hear that?
I can hear that.
Okay, let's write my name.
Obsesionado con mi boca, habla sin respirar, despacio te digo, porque
Hi.
nos falta un tiempo más
Gonna wait like
para
2 minutes
pasear este país nublado,
and again get started.
este país nublado. Para pasear este país nublado, este país
Oh, you
nublado.
know, screen share. I don't want to share my screen yet.
And I haven't
That's all I want to
lost
share.
my mind thinking
Sorry.
about you. And I haven't lost my breath, shouting all the things we're about to do. And we'll take our turn, and we'll take our time, knowing that we'll be here long after you. Para pasear este país nublado, este país nublado. Para pasear este país nublado, este país nublado.
Matt, I just made you the co-host in case anything goes wrong with my computer, which hopefully will not happen.
I'm crossing my fingers for your computer to be okay.
All right, I think we should probably get started. Let me turn the music down. Turn that off. Share, stop doing that. And then let's go to, uh, oh, that's weird. I don't want that. I want this. All right. Can you all see the slideshow?
I see your desktop, not a
Yeah.
slideshow.
All right, let me stop doing that. Interesting. Try it again. How about this? Wait, that's not share sound. Oh yeah, share sound, yes. Now do you see it?
Now I see the slideshow.
Excellent. All right. Hello, everybody. Um, my name is Miguel Gutierrez. I am an associate professor of choreography and also the vice chair slash program director of the MFA program in choreographic inquiry here at UCLA. Thanks for being here with us. I want to acknowledge that I'm coming to you or zooming to you from the land of the Tongva and the Gabrielina peoples, and that UCLA is situated on this land. It's also a land grant institution, which puts our sort of placement and location into even a more sort of I would say compromised space. So acknowledging the land is important and also giving thanks to the people who have stewarded this land for generations and for generations to follow. Um, and yeah, I'm happy to get to sort of say that and to work at a place that is thinking about that a lot. I just want to say that up front. So okay, let's see this. Oh yes, okay, it's going working. So this is what's going to happen today. Doing our little introductions. We're going to talk through important dates. We're going to talk through application requirements. I'm going to give you some kind of like a little overview of the MFA itself, the program requirement. I'll talk, share a little bit on the faculty. Also, we'll share just like a little tiny little video, just a little short part of it of a recent capstone, and then we'll leave time for Q&A. So I'm going to set my timer to myself because I am known for being chatty, so that I can kind of make sure I'm staying on schedule so we can get to the stuff. We are recording this, and that's for the purposes of being able to post this online later. So I hope that's okay with you. So going to this bit. So again, I am Miguel. I've been here since fall of 22. So this is only my third year here and my second year serving as vice chair. And which means it was also my last year because the vice chair positions are 2-year commitments. We have like a kind of rotating faculty governance situation here in our department. So every faculty member will play some sort of role as a vice chair or eventually chair at some point. And then, Matt, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, my name's Matt Dingman. I work through logistically for admissions and for paperwork mostly to Division of Graduate Education. Um, this is my first fall through all of this admissions process with this program. I've worked with graduate admissions through other programs, but if you send me a question, I will try to find the answer how it relates to this program as quickly as possible. And good luck to all of you.
Yeah, and Matt is also the academic advisor for the MFA, so it would also be the person, if you were to be in our program, who is kind of like making sure that you're keeping on top of your requirements and can answer questions around like, should I take this class or this class to fulfill this, you know? So that's a person you would speak to about that. Um, so I'm gonna just go launch right away into these important dates. So the application deadline is Sunday, December 1st. So it's all kind of always December 1st. That falls on a Sunday this year, so just be aware of that. The way it works is that there's a two-phase process to the admissions process for the MFA. So by the end of December, probably even sooner, you'll be informed if if you're being invited into the next phase, right? Phase one is just applications. The committee reviews applications, and then from that we come up with a list of people to invite for phase two. So there's like one initial sort of cut. And then phase two, by like early January, you are submitting a third video submission because it's 2 videos required for the initial application. And then there's remote interview via Zoom on Friday, January 24th. And those interviews are conducted in like faculty pairs. So 2 faculty will interview you. If you are an international student, depending on where you are, sometimes we conduct some of those interviews the night before as well. So we try to work with the reality of where you're calling in from, so that we don't ask you to be awake at like 4 a.m. for your interview. That's all of that. Oh, I will say, sorry, that's not here, but the notification process can be as long as like through May. We have our meeting and then we kind of come up with our list. And then it's a little bit, it takes some time because we also are working with the PhD program here to sort of coordinate how many students we can take in. And sometimes that just takes a bit of some time to coordinate and finalize. So if you get to the phase 2 process and you don't hear from us by February or even March, it's not necessarily a done deal that you haven't been accepted. It just means that we're still trying to figure out things behind the scenes, as it were. So yeah. So application requirements. So I'll just read what's through here. So all applicants are required to follow the university's graduate admissions and requirements. So this is hyperlinked, but I'm not going to go there right now. But if you just Google like graduate UCLA admissions requirements, there's a page there that kind of guides you through all of that. But the basics for UCLA is that you have to write a statement of purpose, a personal statement, which is kind of more talking about kind of like the conditions of your upbringing and kind of like the the things that you've overcome to pursue education, period. That's particularly important if you're interested in applying for the Graduate Opportunity Fellowship, the GOF award. You should look that up as well to see if you're eligible for that. Because they will use that personal statement as a kind of metric for whether you are eligible for that award. And if you do get that award, that's great because that helps to cover your tuition costs at UCLA. Matt, please chime in whenever I say anything that sounds not correct. And then other criteria for admission. So for US student, the requirements of bachelor's degree from a regionally accredited institution, comparable in standard and content to a bachelor's degree from the University of California. Um, Graduate admission through the regular process requires an overall scholastic average, including any post-baccalaureate study of a B, so 3 on a 4.0 GPA scale, or better, or its equivalent if the letter grade system is not used, right? So some people go to schools that are like on a 1 to 10 grading system or 1 to 5 grading system. We encounter all kinds of things. So you just have to kind of match the this sort of metric of like a B or 3.0 or higher. International students whose post-secondary education is completed outside the US is expected to hold a degree representing completion of at least 4 years of study with above average, very good scholarship from a university or university level institution. So that just is what it is. So that is like we've had situations in the past where international students wanted to apply, but they didn't fulfill this requirement, and so unfortunately they were removed from the pool of applicants. So if you are an international student, you really have to make sure that your sort of university education or college education, depending on how you refer to it in your host country, matches the standard that is defined here. Um, and then also, if you're an international student, you do have to meet certain English requirements. So again, you can refer to the grad admissions page. You are probably going to have to take either the TOEFL test, the test of English as a foreign language, or the YELTS test. I can't remember what it stands for right now, but each of those have like minimum scores that you have to achieve in order to be considered for admission because the program is run in English. So we have to make sure that you can write and communicate in English. So again, I said there are 2 phases. So in addition to that kind of standard grad school application, which would be true of any grad program you apply to at UCLA, we WACD, the World Arts and Cultures Dance Program, we have our own requirements. So the WACD Statement on Choreographic Inquiry. So this is an addition to the Statement of Purpose required by UCLA graduate admissions, and this is uploaded into the supplemental document section of the application. So this is your chance to kind of tell us what you want to do here. Like, what are you interested in researching? What do you imagine you're going to want in terms of resources for that? what are you bringing to that research? Like, what have you learned in the past that you want to bring to that? What's going to be new for you to explore? And how do you imagine that these resources are actually available here, right? So if you're like, I want to, I don't know, work with chickens, it's kind of like, well, we don't really have like a coop here for you to work with. So like, do you have a plan? It's like it's you want to walk in with like a sense of that the thing that you're interested in researching while you're here is going to be viable for you within the confines of the sort of parameters of our program. I don't want to say confines, the parameters of our program. Let's put it that way. You have to submit 2 letters of recommendation. It's always preferable if that can come from academic sources, so people that you studied with in the past. We have had situations where it's like peers or like employers. Um, it's just always going to be a stronger recommendation letter if it's coming from a person that you studied with and has a sense of you as a student, since that's kind of the thing that we're trying to evaluate during this process. And then for the application process, you have to be able to submit your unofficial transcripts indicating degree completion. Um, if you were to be admitted, then you have to submit like an official transcript. So sometimes you're able to get just like the one without having to get the other. But for the purposes of the application, an unofficial transcript is sufficient. And then there's this thing called the WACD MFA Experiential Background Questionnaire, which is extensive. So I would say like you want to leave time for that. It's asking you about your training, your experience as a dancer, your experience as a choreographer, and other kinds of comparable questions. So that would be a significant thing that you want to spend some time with. And then, I'm sorry, my computer screen's blocking my second screen. The descriptions of below video samples. Oh yeah, so you're also going to include the 2 video samples, and you're going to want to give some context for that, right? you know the panel sometimes will have the chance to watch the whole sample depending on what you're submitting. If you're submitting a whole work, we're not going to watch like your 45-minute piece. So we want to know like, okay, what's the main thing you want us to see, and what is it about this that you want to sort of say? And so I always say it's kind of like, here's this piece, I was thinking about this, and this sample demonstrates that I can do blank, right? That's usually kind of a nice standard way to work through a description. For both descriptions. And if you can, and if you have the body of work for it, I think it's great when those 2 samples are quite different from each other or show 2 different aspects of your work, so that we can sort of get a sense of like, oh, okay. Then moving on into what I believe is phase 2. Yes, okay. Phase 2. So again, by no later than early January 2025, you'd be submitting a 3rd video sample of a choreographic work. We say preferably this should feature you as the primary performer. So you might want to think about that in terms of the other 2 videos. Like if you've made group work and solo work, you might want to hold off on the solo work until phase 2. Now, I don't want you to sweat too much that particular stipulation, because your work is your work, and please don't like go out and make a piece just for the purposes of application. But it's just to say that sometimes it's useful for us if you've shown like group work or works that don't have you in it, then we can see like, okay, this is how this person is thinking through movement or dance or performance in their own body, and that is actually quite informative for us during that process. And then, like I said, January 24th, there is this remote interview with a MFA faculty. And also that day, in the Zoom room, we invite some grad students to come to be present. So like while you're not in your interview, you can like get all the tea from them about it. And be like, who's the nicest professor? No, stuff like that. But yeah, anything that confuses you, they can usually answer any of those questions. So I want to clarify some things about our program. We are the World Arts and Cultures / Dance Department. It goes by WACD. You'll hear me say that, and that's kind of how we refer to it within the school. So it's one department, but we have 2 what we call areas. So 2 sort of distinct disciplines of study within the building. So we have dance, which is why you're here right now. And we have what's called World Arts and Cultures, which is a combination of like a cultural studies, curatorial studies, visual studies program that's thinking through like you know international concerns. It's kind of it rubs up against practices of ethnography. So it's a pretty incredible range of study in that program. But so we're distinct in that we have kind of faculty that are specific to each area, although some do overlap. But we kind of work as a unit. And that's kind of different than a lot of other programs where like dance is usually situated alongside theater. Here, that's not the case. Theater is in a different school altogether. Structurally, we're housed within the School of Art and Architecture, or SOA for short, people will often say. And that has four programs: art, architecture, design and media arts, sometimes referred to as DESMA, and us, WACD. So we have our own building, Kaufman Hall, but in the sort of like, you know, geography map of what the school is, we're housed structurally within SOA. Um, we ourselves, WACD, have 4 degree programs which operate independently, but there's a lot of overlap. So we have the BA in dance, the undergraduate degree in dance. We have a BA in world arts and cultures. Then we have the MFA, which is why we're here. And then we also have a PhD in culture and performance, or CAP. CAP is kind of a confusing abbreviation because there's 3 different things at UCLA that are called CAP. But in our case, it's the culture and performance PhD. It's also the name of the presenting wing of UCLA, and also the name of like the institution on campus that confers tenure on people. Um, I just like to point this out because I think it's one of the really special things actually about our program is that we have all these different levels of degree programs happening in the same place. And particularly with the graduate students, there is a lot of like interaction with the PhDs, right? In some instances, you could end up in classes together, like in some of the grad theory programs. Um, but there's just like general an interaction, and like the PhD students and also the MFA students organize talks, and so it just means that there's a kind of level of intellectual engagement that's happening, I think, in this program, which is really distinct from a lot of other schools that I've like taught at or was a guest artist in. And as a faculty member, I'll just say it's like great that there's that in the building and alongside the BA students, right? So we have facilities that include 6 studios, 1 theater, a media lab, something called the Social Practice Art Lab or SPAL, a grad student lounge, and many various lecture halls. I can do this later, but I can show you kind of some of the spaces. I want to go through the slides first, and then if I have time before my self-imposed time limit, I'll go and show you some of the spaces through the website. Although you can also, from our website, wacd.ucla.edu, find the facilities page where you can see the spaces more close up. But it's pretty awesome, pretty great spaces. The theater in particular is very beautiful and kind of a reconfigurable space. Like it can be serve as a kind of proscenium space. It also has retractable seating, so it can be kind of a more open forum kind of a room. Uh, hopefully everything's okay. I know I'm going really fast, but I'm trying to be really thorough. Um, so let's talk about the program requirements for our MFA. So a little bit of background. This used to be a 3-year program. It is now a 2-year program. That is also one of the things that I think distinguishes our program. And a lot of other schools require you to be there in grad school for 3 years. We're going to try to get you out in 2, right? It does mean it's a bit compressed and it's like it can feel like, ooh, it's a lot. We're also on a quarter system. So it's not a semester system. It's not that 12 to 15 weeks fall and spring. It's rather 10-week quarters. So our fall quarter doesn't start until very late September or early October, ends early December. Winter quarter starts kind of right at the beginning of January, so you don't have that January break that a lot of other schools have. Goes to early March, then there's a week-long break, and then there's the third quarter, spring quarter, which is usually beginning of April into like the first week or so of June. So just to name that because that's particular. As a result, students must successfully complete a total of 72 units. That really breaks down to 12 units a quarter, right? Which is the minimum requirement for full-time enrollment at UCLA. Um, 72 units of coursework required for the degree must include a minimum of 44 units at the graduate and professional course level. So that's 200 and 400, right? That just means like there's certain classes you can take that are still undergrad classes, technically, like upper division undergrad classes that you could take, such as movement classes. Um, a lot of times we don't designate those, we don't give those like grad school numbers, like the 200 numbers, but you can take those classes. But minimum of 44 units have to be at the graduate level. So the four breakdowns within the program of what this unit requirement recovers is what we call creative practice, 20 units. That usually breaks down to like four or five classes. No, five classes, sorry. Five 4 unit classes. So we have a choreographic series called the 211 series. So that's A, B, C, D. That's required. So that's not something you have to think about. So 16 units, boom, done. And then there's other courses you can take to require to fulfill that requirement, such as this music and dance collaborative class that Bob Ean teaches, or that's dance C20 222. 274B means that you're doing kind of work with a faculty member for the faculty concert, or there might be a quarter that a faculty is just leading a 274. That just means you're kind of like in a rehearsal process with a faculty member, or some sort of research process. Or 490, which is the designation that we give for students to either do independent studies or also to work on their own work. So those are the ways that people fulfill that part. Then there's theoretical slash critical studies seminars, 12 units. Again, in the conventional sense, this breaks down to 3 4 unit courses. These are, chosen in consultation with your faculty advisor. Oh, that's another thing about our program. Everybody gets an advisor from the moment they arrive. Um, and those courses, again, have to be minimum 200 level. So that usually breaks down to 2 classes in the department, and then one of the classes could be taken outside of the department. Again, has to be grad level. Um, and that's just a conversation you have to have with your advisor. But for example, we had a student who was doing work around African diasporic forms, and so for one of her theoretical critical studies seminars requirements, she took a class in the AFAM department here at UCLA, right? And that qualified towards this requirement. So, depending on the research that you're doing, you might want to really look to a class in a different department. And we really encourage that. It's like we really want you to be able to study with other professors here outside the department. Then there's something called the production slash practicum experience, 12 units. So again, 4 of those units right off the bat, you kind of are going to get covered by this class called the Dance C243 or Production Arts Seminar. That's kind of a class that's focusing on arts administration, kind of the process of making a show from start to finish, grant writing, pitching, budgets, and then other kinds of questions that come up in the process of trying to get your work made. That class is taught every other year, usually in the fall. And then additional units may be selected from production design courses. So Dance 441, which is a designation that we give to cover kind of the development of your capstone, of production of your capstone. And there's this class called C271, which is more design oriented, lighting design or sort of stage production class that's taught by some of the people in our department. So, this can be fulfilled in many different ways. And then you have 28 units of electives in all areas. And that's really kind of like, I won't say a free for all, but you can fulfill in many ways. The vast majority of our students fulfill those with movement classes, right? Taking movement classes on the regular. And we really encourage you to have a regular movement practice while you're in the program. And there are a variety of forms that are taught in the program. And then depending on grad or PhD students that we have at the time, sometimes there's like a specific form that's taught that isn't usually taught right all the time. So we have a person who will teach like Odyssey, for example, ODC classical classicized, I should say, Indian dance form, and that's because that pertains to that student's uh, PhD research. So she's leading a course in that right now. That might not necessarily be a class that's offered all the time. So you kind of want to keep your eye out for those kind of courses. Yeah, so that's fulfills all the units. So it's a lot of stuff. A lot of this stuff is kind of taken care of for you in that like you just kind of have to take it, like the 211 series or the Dance C243, the Production Arts Seminar, and then it's kind of like sorting out where you're going to fit in these other classes, like the theory courses, and trying to get those kind of fulfilled at a moment that you don't have to worry that's going to conflict with the development of your capstone. Um, so, for example, a sample way that this all plays out. Um, you know, in the fall of your first year, while you're taking 211A, the first choreography class, you begin to work on what's one of the requirements of the course of the program, which is a research paper. A research paper where you're basically kind of looking into some aspect of your research, but by looking outward to see, okay, well, who else is doing this? Who else has written about this? Or what is some other information I can cull about this? And this could be writing about other artists' work. This could be writing about a particular cultural concept that's specific, that has relationship to your work. But that begins in the fall. And then in the winter, you complete your research paper. That's ideal that you complete it then. And you have to complete it in order to be able to propose for your capstone. And then in the spring, you do your first year MFA showing. Every time you finished one of the 211 classes, there's basically a showing, mostly just to the other faculty. We all try to always go to the showings at the end of the quarter of our grad students. So there's a lot of interaction between the faculty and the grad students throughout the process. But this one is a kind of culminating showing that's really kind of like to really assess, okay, like how's it going for you here? Like how are you doing? Like are you on track? Like do you feel like you understand what you're doing with your work? And that conversation is really happening at the end of the first year. It's also a moment for you to really think through, how do I want to develop this capstone? We have kind of two ways of fulfilling capstone. The most common way is something called the concert model, which means that you're putting on a show in our theater or in a theater or in a theatrical type space um, in your second year. There is also an option called the portfolio model, which is, let's say that your work is not really about one sort of concert, right? You're not making evening length work or long form stage work, but you're doing something that's more research oriented, or you're kind of more about like weird performance experiments. You would have to construct and clarify a number of those to build what we call the portfolio model. And so that if you were going to go to the portfolio route, that proposal kind of wants to happen, I think, by the spring of your first year, just because you're going to have a longer timeline for presenting these things. If you're doing a concert, you don't have to worry about that too much in the spring of your first year. Then in the second year, you come back, you're taking, 211D now, which is the fourth and final choreography class. And during that class, you're working on a proposal for your capstone. Again, this is more the case if you're doing the concert, which the vast majority of our students have followed the concert model, but I just want to say that that's not the only option. Um, you're forming your committee. So you're identifying faculty members that are going to serve on your capstone committee. And again, these were going to come from inside the department, and there's also the option to have somebody from outside the department. Um, and you're going to do this kind of presentation at the end of the quarter that serves as your capstone proposal showing. And this is an instance of showing like 15 to 25 minutes of work, and then your committee's there, and then your committee talks, and like we're like, okay, does this person get a pass or a provisional pass, or like, hey, you need to get back to work kind of thing, right? So that's part of the process here. And sometimes if you don't pass in your first showing, no worries. That just means you have to kind of like regroup, rethink, and then in winter you can do another proposal, right? It's not like you're gonna be ousted from the program or anything like that. Then in the winter of your second year, you're maybe presenting portfolio events, or you're just working on your capstone concert, right? You're rehearsing, you're producing, you're assembling your design team. We really kind of put that on you to figure out. Um, and then in the spring, usually that's when if people are doing concerts, that's when they show their concerts. Well, first they do like a showing, a final showing. That's what advancement to candidacy means. Then you're doing your concert. Then like a few days afterwards, within a week, you're having a meeting with your committee. And, we're saying oral defense. Again, it's not a situation where it's like, it's not like, the Supreme Court and we're grilling you with questions. It's more a conversation. How did that go? What was good, what was rough. And out of that, you come up with a kind of list of questions that you work on as a reflection paper. So you're going to write this long paper. That's not an academic paper. It can be just kind of like, this is how it went for me. And you're also assembling a production notebook, including a video that's like a little sort of like process video of your work, sort of showing how you developed the work. So this is the sort of general map. The research paper, finishing the research paper, the showing, deciding which capstone direction you want to go, then the proposal, the committee formation, rehearsing or presentation, and then this final bit of showing it, meeting with the committee, and doing this kind of writing. Yeah, it's quick. It's quick. It's a lot in a short time. I'll just say it's a lot. And so part of what that says to me, and I reflect back to you, is that like you want to really it's best if you come here with a sense of what you want to do here. I think if this were a longer program, you could kind of be like lost for the first year and a half, and that would be legit. And I honestly want to put a vote in for being lost. Like I'm a big believer in sort of like wandering in your mind, but then you might be better served by a longer program. With our program, it's like it's not impossible. It's not like it's not like we're gonna hold you to the thing you said you were going to do when you got here, right? You're always welcome to expand your research, but I just think for the students' level of understanding of themselves, it's best when they arrive with a sense of what they want to do here. And that is evident usually in the application, right? When you're writing your statement of purpose, your choreographic statement of purpose, that's really coming across there. We're like, oh, okay, this person has an idea of what they want to do. Oh, I was just gonna show you like a little clip of Akila's Akila Oamang was our MFA was one of the MFA students last year, and this is a video that eventually will be online, where you can just sort of see how she's working. You have an opportunity to see some of the spaces. So this is one of the really pretty studios that we have, Studio 214. In general, when students work in group work, they're calling those dancers from the undergrads, right? This was a group of really wonderful undergrad students that Akila worked with over the course of several quarters to develop her piece. This was an especially ambitious piece. She worked with like 10 dancers. That was like, wow. It's quite challenging to do that here because the BA is not a BFA. We're not a conservatory. So the undergrad students are very, very busy fulfilling, if they're dance majors, fulfilling all the units of the dance major and also the general education units across the university, right? But it's not impossible, and they're psyched to get to perform. So this is another space in the building, one of the studios that's here. We have a couple like really nice big spaces. Yeah, so this is just like giving you a sense of what was going on here, and then there's a little bit of footage of the theater itself, so you get a sense of it. Uh, Aquila chose to work with it in a kind of proscenium setup, but students have done different things with the space. Okay, how do I go to the next slide is the question. I don't know how, so I'm just going to go here and then go back to slideshow. So just to give you an overview of the faculty. So this is the MFA faculty at UCLA right now. So Kate Ladenheim, who's a new professor who works a lot with media, the interaction of technology and dance. It's kind of Kate's area of expertise. That's me. Vic Marks, who's been here for a long time and is just an incredible professor and has also done a lot of work around disability and directs the Dancing Disability Lab. Lionel Popkin, who is currently the interim dean of SOA, the School of Art and Architecture. So he's not actually super present in our building right now, but he eventually we imagine that he will not be the interim dean, in which case he probably would be around more. But he's done a lot of work around Southeast Asian identity and looking kind of at the development of modernity in that space as it relates to dance. Will and I were hired at the same time. Also, just like an incredible artist, it's like hard to sort of like create a small a little liner for Will, but I would say he's dealing with language and visuality and blackness in sort of very unconventional ways. And then Dave Rousseff, who has been here also for a long time, who is sort of known as one of the premier artists who was integrating text and dance together, and continues to do so, and also has worked in other media such as film. So those are the main choreo faculty at the moment. Then we have at the moment three dance studies faculty. We have Anurima Banerjee, who is looking at classicized Indian forms and how that interacts with the state. Triya Blue Wakpa, who does a lot of work around indigenous dance. And then we have Janet or Jay O'Shea, who's currently the chair. And Jay does a wide range of exploration, but some of the things that Jay has researched are like Filipino martial arts. She's also an instructor in martial arts. She looks at the relationship of food to culture. She also has taught in cluster courses around foodways. I mean, she has a really incredible intellectual practice. She has also done a lot of research into also Indian dance forms. So these are like very smart people, wonderfully involved in the dance studies field. And we are getting a new dance studies professor probably at the beginning of next year. But I can't name names yet, but just to say there will be another person on faculty serving in the role of a dance studies faculty. Then we have um, the World Arts and Cultures, right? The wax side of the department. And there we have Breon Bain, Alex Flynn, David Gear, Ayasha Garin, Peter Sellers, Aparna Sharma, David Shorter, and Wendy Sung. I'm not going to go through all the research that they do. You can look it up online. But again, you would potentially access some of these professors through some of the grad courses. You would be able to invite them onto your committee if you wanted to have them on your committee. That's another way that people interact with professors here. You could also potentially do an independent study with one of them while you're here. So I encourage you to look up their work and the kinds of things that they do because it's really amazing work that they're doing. And then, we have an incredible array of lecturers, visiting teachers, adjuncts, and other affiliated people. So it's a list here, but some of these people teach really on the regular. Some people are like Jackie and Lee, who run a company called VersaStyle, are really kind of directing the hip hop aspect of the dance education part of our training. People like Gracie White teaches kind of modern, postmodern dance. Willie Sully is teaching West African dance forms. There's been other teachers that do those things. And again, like I said, depending on which grad student is here when, you might end up studying one of those forms with another grad student. Nathaniel Whitfield teaches on the wax side, but is teaching like performance art. Yeah, so it's like, there's a wide range of people. Milka Georgievich is usually teaching around somatics and kinesiology. Jason does martial arts. Natsuo teaches ballet. So yeah, lots of great people there. Oh, Robert Ian and Ann Carlson. Gosh, how could I not have mentioned Ann Carlson, incredible choreographer who teaches a lot in our department. And then we have an amazing staff, Arsenio, Matt, who you just met, Anna, Daniel, Raphael, Mark, Ginger, Will, Joy. Mostly just wanted to say their names because they do so much work for our program. And they're also the people that you're often dealing with a lot, right? To figure out logistics. And Arsenio and Ginger, you would be interacting with a lot around the production of your capstone. Um, Daniel and Anna, you'd be talking to about money. Joy, you'd be talking about everything. Matt, you'd be talking to about your curricular progress. And Raphael is like keeper of the of the grad budget, like knows all about grad budget and awards and things like that. So I think that that is everything. I know I just barreled through that, but I wanted to make sure I got through all of it. Um, so this is a moment that is available for questions. And I'm happy to repeat something that I said and clarify something again. Matt is also here to help clarify anything about the application process that is confusing for you. Yeah, the floor is open. And just like raise your hand or just unmute and go for it. As an experimental artist, I'm comfortable with silence and waiting.
You might have just covered everything too thoroughly, Miguel.
Oh yeah, that's like the FedEx guy. Jenna, did you wanna? Were you unmuting? Oh, I thought I saw you. I thought I saw the hand going towards him.
Writing. Yeah, but hello. Thank you for for everything. Um, yeah, it's just nice to get a rundown of how the program operates for that quick 2 years.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Go for it, Tierney.
Hi, thank you so much. I'm just kind of curious, do you guys accept usually like mid-career
Mm.
choreographer? Or like do you ever take anyone fresh out of undergrad or yeah.
Yeah, it's a great question. It's a range. I think that part of the shift from 3 years to 2 years was, I think, to make it attractive to people who've been in the field and are in the field now, working professionally already, as a way of not taking too much time out of their sort of development and progress. Um, Also, people who are really not only wanting to sometimes those people really want a break to like develop their work even more deeply, and so going to this program I think is a really good moment. um, Obviously an MFA is a terminal degree, so there's the teaching credential component to it. For a lot of jobs that you might want to apply to, they'll ask for like MFA or comparable experience, so that's another reason of course that people do it. We have also taken people who are pretty fresh out of undergrad. Right now, I would say it's kind of a mix of some who are relatively new from undergrad. I think if you're more if it's more recent that you graduated undergrad, what then becomes important is that there's a sense of clarity about why you're going to grad school. I think we can kind of sniff out when someone's like, I think I'm supposed to do this, so I'm just going to apply. But there's like nothing kind of really beyond that. And so a lot of young people are like great choreographers, so that can come through in the work, and it's like, well, then great, you're doing something already, and we can see it. And if you have a sense of what it is about your work that you want to do, then like the stipulation of it being that you're so recent from undergrad isn't as like, it's not going to be counted against you. I think it only really happens when it's like, and we've seen it. We've seen when people apply, we're like, this person should not be applying to grad school. Like they don't know why they're doing it, which is a legitimate thing to do when you're confused in life, of course. So, does that answer the question? Awesome.
I was curious about the graduates of the MFA program and maybe what you see people going on to do, or I think I'm curious about how connections are made throughout the program, and if you could talk about, I don't know, maybe what recent graduates have done with their MFA or like from building their portfolio in the program, mayes.
No, this is a great question. I mean, this is only my third year, so I don't have,
Right, sorry, you were
no, no,
also,
no, you don't have to apologize.
yeah.
I just don't have a deep archive. Of the ones that I've interacted with, one of them is like a visiting professor now. One of them is just very actively making their work. I mean, they're both very active making their work. I don't want to say like if you're the professor, you're not doing that. But one just to mean that like one of them is not doing teaching at a program. Another one I know is really like on the job hunt, like pretty hardcore. The other one is a local artist who is currently developing a work for CalArts students. In the past, other grads have gone on to become professors at universities, and we have a pretty solid placement rate of that. Some people stick around in LA, and LA, I think the dance scene here has really evolved over the last 10 years. And there kind of is a dance scene, and it's really interesting, and there's a wide range of work that's happening here. Obviously, there's a lot of intersection with the commercial dance world as well. That usually is less people coming from the grad program that are involved in that. It's more the undergrads who kind of get involved in that aspect of the culture here. But I can imagine that it's a thing that people do. So yeah, it's like a kind of a range. Trying to think of other people that I know about who are more recent. It's confusing because I get them confused with the PhD students again because sometimes it's like the grads writ large we think of as like MFA and PhD together, but I know they're quite distinct and they're going to different ends of things. But yeah, I hope that answers the question. I feel like the people who are coming through right now, it really remains to be seen. I mean, one person who's in the program right now, second year, already had a career as a choreographer. But I think kind of got to a place where they were like, okay, I've kind of reached, I feel like I've done what I can do in the city I'm living in. Like she was living in Miami, and I think she wanted a real shift and she wanted to kind of be influenced by a different place. So I think sometimes people also use the MFA as an opportunity to become familiar with a different scene. Or they've been kind of in a place in the country that feels a little more distanced from regular cultural output, so they want to be in proximity to that kind of a thing. So uh, it's a pretty active time in LA, I would say, for art, performance, and art, and just there's a lot of activity here. It used to be the case that like there was like one thing a weekend, and that was the thing. Now I feel like it's like you can miss stuff. Like, I came from New York. Obviously, New York is like, jam-packed full of things, almost to like its own detriment. And I feared coming to LA because I was like, oh, I'm so used to seeing so much all the time. But I don't feel like I'm getting less at all, actually. Yeah,
You mentioned that it's possible for like MFA grad students to teach
yeah,
um, undergrad. What has that looked like in the past, and what's that
yeah,
route?
yeah. So thanks for bringing it up. It makes me allows me to kind of go into an aspect of the presentation that I didn't really touch on. And there's a couple of reasons for that, and I'll explain shortly. Teaching is not a requirement of our program. You are not required to teach. If you have the resources or whatever, you're like, I just want to be a student and work at my work, more power to you. However, as a TA, that is a form of employment. It is also a way in which and again, Matt, I see you at the ready to stop me if I say something inappropriate or the area I can't really legitimately speak to. But when you're a TA, your tuition and your fees are covered. When you're a TA at a minimum of 25%, right? So if 100% means like a 40-hour work week, technically 25% is like a 10-hour work week, right? 50% would be like a 20-hour work week. And you'd be getting paid differently as a 25% TA versus a 50% TA. But the point is at a minimum of 25% TA-ship, for that quarter, you have your tuition and your fees covered. Now, if you're an out-of-state student, right? If you have an additional or an international student, there's the thing called non-resident state tuition, NRST, and a TA-ship does not cover that. Often the department covers that depending on our yearly budget, but that's not a promise that we can make. And in general, funding is not a promise that we can make. That's part of why it's not a big part of this presentation, is because we don't have a standardized funding package that we offer people. It is often the case that students fund their education through a combination of TA-ships, teaching assistantships, and also what's called a GSR, a graduate student researcher position, which is basically that you're working for a faculty member for the quarter, helping them do research around some sort of field of study that they're involved with at the time. So that can look like you're going to the library for them, you're copying stuff, you're helping them identify people in the field of the thing, you're maybe setting some stuff up there. It doesn't mean that you're like, their house cleaner or, it's not like you become like an assistant. It's specifically about school study. So that also would be an instance where this is right, Matt, your tuition and your fees are covered when you're doing GSR.
It's the exact same pay scale.
Oh, okay. It's the same scale and it's the same benefits, and also the same limitations in that if you're an international student, it's not covering. If you're an international or out-of-state student, it's not covering NRST. We can't tell you to become a California resident if you're not one, but it is often the case in the past. See what I'm doing there? That people, when they arrive to California, apply for state residency, which means that if that goes through by your second year, you could be receiving in-state tuition. You could be, yeah, you could not have to worry about the NRST aspect of the tuition. Again, that's a process. You have to get on it. You have to like really be diligent about it. There's real stipulations. You're meant to stay in the state for like the whole year. If you leave the state, UCLA was going to want to know why. And there's been instances of people being like, I had a job, and UCLA is like, sorry, you left, right? So that's like gets tricky. So just be aware if that's something that you're considering. If you're not a state resident, that's a thing. Yeah, Kate, and then oh no, oh sorry, oh yeah, is
Sorry.
that okay? Okay, yeah, that's okay. No, go ahead if that's okay. Go ahead, Zinji.
I just have a clarification question on the international student part. So it like I am an international student, I'm from China. If I'm doing the TA or the research assistant, am I gonna get paid or like it's just not gonna cover my tuition? Or like it just
You will get paid, and again, it will cover tuition and fees. It just won't cover the NRST part. So there's tuition and fees that's just like everybody at UCLA has to pay this. Then if you're not, it's a public school, right? And so part of the mandate of the public school, the UC system, is to support residents, California residents, right? And to provide an affordable education model for, a wide range of income recipients in the state. So it privileges in-state residents for that reason. And if you're an out-of-state resident or if you're an international student, there's a way that like through this uh, sort of function of the NRST, they're able to sort of like help support the people who are here. So, but if you have employment, it covers the same thing that it would for anybody else. There's not a difference because you're international, right, Matt? I'm pretty sure that's the case.
That's very much true. Thank you.
But and we absolutely have international students who work as TAs, and that's great. The only thing is, if you know that you want to be a TA, you do have to take a class in the first quarter of your first year. I think it's called 495, and it's usually taught by a PhD student, and it's kind of introduction to teaching. Even if you've taught before, you're going to be asked to take this class. Talking about how to build a syllabus, how to work with students. Depending on who's teaching it, there's usually sort of a focus on pedagogical approaches and theories. So that's the thing that you would have to take if you wanted to teach. And then there's an optional course to go even further into that in the spring, but that's not a requirement, even if you're a TAing. It's just if you were like really interested in learning more about teaching. Kate.
Hi. I was wondering how much this department is in dialogue with the new genres department and whether there's an exchange happening and whether we can take classes in that department if we're makers who are more interdisciplinary?
It's tricky. It's a university.
Yeah.
Disciplinary distinctions and differences are real. And I would say architecture is a big part of that. The fact that we're in our own building and that, art is in a different space and then grad art is in Culver City, right? It just means that like sometimes this kind of idealize like the intellectual realm of the university where information just flows freely from one place to the other is not really true. But it is true that students take courses in other departments. Oh, no problem. Thank you. That they develop relationships with professors in other programs. One of our grad students has become is now involved with classes with like Lauren Lee McCarthy, who teaches in design media arts, who's like a superstar in that field, right? And so like Lauren will probably be on their capstone committee. It might be like there's like that one person that you're able to access through the one course. Now, again, other departments have their own grad requirements. Sometimes their grad courses are required for their majors, so there's not a lot of room left over for students to take. Like, for example, I had a person from art who wanted to take my 211D class, the advanced choreography class. They kind of can't because it's part of a series, and that class is focused on developing your capstone, right? And that person's not going to do a capstone in our program, right? So that's an instance where like that's one of the classes I've taught on the regular since I've been here, and it would be a great context in which to interact with a student from another program. But because of the stipulations of this major, it doesn't really work. So you kind of have to like you'd have to do like a little like sniffing, like, okay, what's the class? Okay, you're teaching a class, it's a grad level class and it's open to non-majors, and will you please answer my email? And like anything else, some professors are pretty diligent about it, and other ones are less. So so I think you just have to kind of like have that. I think if, again, with the hire of someone like Kate Ladenheim, who this is like really a thing that Kate's really interested in, and I would also say Will, because
Yeah.
well, and me, but I just want to like give props, right? It's like that's a really large component of those artists' work. I mean, Will is showing in gallery spaces, is and Kate has also shown work in visual art spaces. So there's some of that work that we've tried to sort of bring into the department through the hires. Uh, but obviously, there's these incredible professors and artists working like Vishal Jadeo in art, is one of the first people that comes to mind. Yeah,
Thank you.
no problem. Maybe one last question, since we started just like a couple minutes late, in case anybody has a remaining question. I want to leave it open. Going once, going twice. All right. Well, I know that was like a lot of words at you really fast, and the slideshow was like boom, boom, boom. But I was just trying to be really thorough, and um, you know, this is the forum through which we can offer information from an equity standpoint. We don't set up like individual meetings with applicants because we are also the people that review the applications. So it becomes a little bit tricky if we have like a lot more knowledge about one person and not so much knowledge about another. So that's in general why we don't set up individual meetings. Although, of course, if you have questions about the application, you can write Matt, and again, Matt will be like point you to the right direction or say like yes or no, maybe, depending on the question. But like we can't like map your educational program here in advance of your application. That's just like not a thing, and that's also like way too much time for us, given all our other admin things. But this we will post this recording, so you'll have access to seeing it. There's also last year's recording already, where I went through a lot of the same stuff. I know more now, so I think this one was better in terms of information. So, but yeah, and we look forward to reviewing your applications if you decide to apply. And good luck to you, and get to work on it sooner rather than later so you don't feel rushed. Uh, and yeah, thank you so much. Om Shanti. Good luck today. Stay okay today. Today is an intense day. I didn't even talk about that, but just be okay. Deep breaths. All right. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.